What's happening, Spartans, and welcome back to the Watching Now podcast over here on CouchSoup, where we are diving into every new episode of Halo Season 2, and we are on episode 7 already. We're almost at the end. We're almost at the finishing line, guys.
Oof,
but it's been a long road, but here we are. Well, next week, I'll say that next week. But anyways, let's introduce the cast. You have myself, your host, Nick, and joining us today, our Spartan lineup, we have Drew.
Hiya! I don't know. I'm a ninja.
He's a Spartan ninja.
Yeah.
We also have.
I don't know.
We also have Dan.
ISAP Guardian. Wait, wrong franchise.
Oh my word! Off to a rollicking good start. We also have Tom.
Hi.
Tom just woke up.
Half asleep. Time zones. Anyways, what's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Episode 7, y'all. We got one more episode left after this. It's the season finale next week. How are we feeling about the season so far? Loving it? Hating it? Pretty awesome.
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it's an improvement. I think
It's
from season
definitely
2.
an improvement.
Yes. 100%.
Strong improvement. I think you said it good last week, Dan. I look forward to each week, right? And that's what you really. I mean, all you can really hope for, I think, in my mind, for a good. That makes a show great, right? Like if you're looking forward to watching it. Some shows you're like, okay, let's get through this. Okay. We're doing a show.
So on that note, let's jump right into the episode recap of episode 7 of season 2. Alrighty, so season 2 is amping up a lot of different things, but we are very much diving hard on the Forerunner artifacts and everything, and we start off with that. So episode 6, we had the big cliffhanger where Chief and McKay were both about to touch the artifact, their sacred artifacts, and like immediately went to credits. And I really like that immediately we got to the answer of that, and we got to see Chief and McKay talking on the Halo. They were on the Halo, right? Yeah. And they were having a little bit of a conversation. Interesting here is that McKay actually says she's found it. I'm guessing she means the Halo, like they've actually found it. Like this was very confusing when everyone says, "Oh, we found the Halo," and everyone's like, "Yeah, we know where the Halo is now, and here's a map of the Halo." I'm like, cool. It just felt like everyone just knew where the Halo was, like all of a sudden.
That's why she had to touch it.
So she could get the final destination.
Yeah, so when she got it, then like in her head, she's like, oh, I remember where this was on the map now. And then she could tell the Arbiter, and that's how Cortana could tell the UNSC.
I thought it was quite interesting as McKay says that, the humans are going to use the Halo to wipe out the Covenant. The Covenants are going to use it to wipe out the humans. So she wants to like create a peaceful home on Halo. And I guess that would be like if anyone threatens it, they would just use the Halo to wipe them out. What is your take on what McKay wants to do with the Halo? Because it sounded like she just wanted to live there and just be peaceful, but surely people would still be fighting over it.
Well, like when she was talking about that and she was saying like the Halo is capable of more than just destruction, to me that felt like an embodiment of what they were doing in the video games, where the Covenant were after the Halo as this holy grail destination for them to just live in peace or whatever they thought it was going to do. And part of me started having this like flash forward mentality of like Chief in the future looking at the ring of Halo and being like, no, this is strictly just a fuck everything weapon, and being like, McKay was wrong. Like I'm waiting for that now in the future of like there's going to be this part where he's going to be like, McKay was wrong. You know, when she thought that they could use the ring to just be peaceful and live peacefully so that people aren't just destroying each other.
Anyways, we snap back to reality after the vision, and we see McKay is still very much in danger, and the Arbiter saves McKay. There's like one of the elites is coming after McKay, and the Arbiter fully saves her. There's a lot more on that, which we're going to get to later. But McKay eventually runs away from the priest, and Cortana appears and speaks to the priest in, what's the language called? Sangheili, that's it. And kind of distracts him a little bit, and then McKay kills the priest, which I think is quite a big little moment there.
A little fun fact. So the priest, I found out his last name was Mdama, which if you played 4 Spartan Ops or 5, you know Jewel Mdama. So I'm assuming maybe they're related, which means again they could be leaning more into like the religious sect that branches off from the Covenant, which is what was talked about in
Seems
last
like what they're
week.
doing, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
There you go.
Fun
I'll
fact.
spot an expert, everybody.
Also, can we give a shout out to Jen Taylor's like her language ability? Like she sounded
Yes.
incredible. Like when she was speaking the language, like I was like, wow,
Cheers.
it sounded like a pro.
We love you, Jen Taylor. But then we head back to the UNSC and to Admiral Parangoski and Ackerson. And Admiral's very much continuing her deceptions, claiming that she was not in Oni, so Reach is kind of all Ackerson's fault, like gaslighting the hell out of him. So the roles have kind of been switched there, where Ackerson was, gaslighting, manipulating everybody, and now Parangoski is doing that to Ackerson. She's definitely the new big bad guy here in terms of like the UNSC side of things. But she kind of says like, like it was all your fault. If anyone investigates it, they're going to find out it was your fault. I had nothing to do with it. So this was kind of confusing to me. I don't know if I have it all correct, but what I took from this is they pick up a signal of a ship, and that ship is McKay's ship. I'm guessing. Oh, that's the signal they got from Cortana
to tell them where the Halo is.
They've got the signal of that ship. They then see that like a whole bunch of other Covenant ships arrive, and it's like the entire Covenant fleet. Obviously, they were chasing the Arbiter and McKay, and they now see that like everyone's there. And they also say that they see what seems like a black hole, and the Admiral thinks, "Oh, that's the Halo." Like all of a sudden, we just like again, like everyone just knows where the Halo is. Like the Halo is right there.
Yeah, that was super confusing because they didn't really answer that till like way later in the episode. That was really, really not well put together. Because I thought like they found the fleet, and I thought the fleet was around. What was the home base for the
High
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I was like, oh, maybe it's that. It looks super cool. It looks like a jellyfish almost. Like I was like, oh, maybe that emits like some sort of radiation that like is warping their sensors. Like so, I was like super confused, and it made the later part of the episode really confusing for me. Even like I was like, oh shit, they're here. Like like it was really weird. This was not well. I aborted, I guess, in a sense, like from a script standpoint. The Parangoski Ackerson stuff felt really, dialogue wise, was like the weakest part for me. Like they just, it felt like they were like shoving like coal into the fire that we already know, right? Like it was just sort of like, I already know this. Like you don't need to force feed me all of this sort of like I'm the bad guy stuff, right? Like it felt so like, I don't know, like less shades of gray, very just on the nose, bad guy, now it's giving you so much to make Ackerson now do the flip, right? Like they had to give you a lot here.
I feel like it cheapened it because like you've got Parangoski Ackerson going at it and you're like, oh, this is interesting. But then you see that there's potentially the Halo and a whole fleet of Covenants. You're like, I want to focus on that. Like, screw these guys. So it's kind of like you have to take in this information, but this is more interesting.
I enjoyed that whole banter between the two because I like the actors did really well with what they had. And I really liked, especially Ackerson's face as like he was just realizing, and just I loved like the subtle shifts he had, and that's what I enjoyed about it.
I mean, that's the part I enjoyed was later on in that scene. There's more to that scene still. Is that Parangoski then decides to deploy the Spartan 3s to attack the Covenant fleet, and it just seems so silly. She sends like I think it was like 4 of their ships to go and attack an entire fleet, and it's like, what are you doing? It's like, why? Like, you should send everyone. Like, what's kind of happening? And Ackerson is very unsure about this. He's like, I'm not sure if they're ready for this type of mission. And it's kind of like, you can see him starting to kind of turn and be like, well, what have we been preparing them for if you're just going to send them after an entire fleet? And that's, to Tom's point, that's like, I think it was played really well. Where he actually is like, ooh, shit, have I been manipulated here?
Yeah, because he was like that.
But no, you are the Dickerson. Not I.
No, it's you.
It's been you.
All this time, you were the Dickerson.
Instead of Dickerson, I do have a funny name, but it is of the word that no one in the US likes to hear.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Right.
Say it.
Don't.
I was already hearing it in my head.
Yeah. And there we have it.
We go back to Chief, and if we remember from last episode, Ackerson had sent the Black Ops after him. So that's Briggs's team. That's what I was going to say, is we know the Black Ops, that's Briggs's team. So the Black Ops and Briggs catch up with him, and Chief kind of talks the troops out of killing him. because Briggs is like, pull the trigger, and then she kind of walks up to that one guy and he's like, if you're going to pull that trigger, look me in the eyes. And the guy's like staring down the whole time, and then eventually like looks up at him, and then he says, no, you can't do it. And then Briggs is like, that's an order, shoot him. And then the guy's like, well, then you do it. I thought that was kind of cool. It's like that. I think it's that respect that all the soldiers have for Chief and what he stands for and everything, that even the soldiers are like, we don't agree with this.
I was just curious if those were the same guys he beat the shit out of in that room with the ropes. Remember when he like...
Probably unlikely.
I don't think so. Those guys are dead.
Probably same team.
Or those guys are still in the hospital.
Yeah, those guys are like, you broke the spine of my friend. I might actually want to shoot you.
No, that's why they didn't shoot him, because they were like, I don't want my spine broken.
Yeah. I actually am curious of that lady who is like leading that team. Like, what makes her so angry? Like, I wish they kind of fleshed out her a little bit more. She's just such a like follow orders for no. Like it just doesn't. Angry. I don't know. Yeah, like she's angry at the chief for some reason. Like it's really weird. Every couple episodes she appears. She's like, we're gonna take you in, chief," and he always gets away.
He always like wipes them off.
And then Kai comes and knocks her ass out.
Her out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say next thing we have.
It's like what the shit, Princess Bride, when he just knocks him on the head.
Falls over. Yeah, it's like a Donkey Kong.
Yeah, like Andre the Giant maneuver.
Then we go back to Halsey. We find out that the cave that they're in were built by the people who made Halo, or made the Halo, which is quite I think key piece of information here. And then Halsey says it's actually more like a library, and that there was her work before. So Miranda was there doing, continuing Halsey's work, and she says the work that she was doing before, they found like a thing in this device, which was a piece of DNA, which I believe it was human DNA and Forerunner DNA.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Their DNA.
Yeah.
They never said Forerunner, right? Like they haven't used the word Forerunner.
I don't think they say Forerunner. I think they say their DNA kind of thing.
Yeah. Just like the ones who came before, sort of.
Or But that was definitely like super specifically like Forerunner architecture with like the triangle shaped doors and stuff.
I was waiting for them to like the reclaimer symbol just hiding somewhere. Just like,
I was looking for that too.
We then go back to the Admiral, and she sends, so that first wave of Spartans that she sends, even Ackerson says they got obliterated. They got absolutely wiped out. I think you can even see them on the screen as like each of their ships just gets like ticked off. And the Admiral wants to deploy more. Like immediately she's like, cool, send another wave. And she's willing to sacrifice all of the Spartans for this attack. And Ackerson's pretty worried about this. He seems a bit concerned. And I think this is where, like I wrote here, I think that's where his change of heart is starting to happen. But one thing that at this point in the story, this point of the episode, I was kind of like, why is she sending, like you're saying, Drew, like she just sends all of these waves of Spartans, and I'm like, what for? Like it's an entire fleet of Covenant ships.
Yeah,
like you're sending 4 ships of Spartans all at once. Like I understand the training draw from last time is that spike that they got to get in, so they only really need 1 unit, but it's like they're all getting like annihilated. Like, why do you keep sending more? Like, why is this attack so important? And that's what's frustrating at this point of the episode. We don't know why.
I just assumed that, like, even in the game, the Spartan 3s, whilst there was more of them, but that's because they just threw them for suicide missions, which, like, last episode, how it showed, like, there was never a plan for them to retreat or get out. That's what they were. They were mass-produced Spartans they could just throw at a problem, and if they got killed 95%, at least 5% win. So it's like, one guy did it, and that's fair enough. We can always get more.
But moving on from there, we then head to Soren and Lyra. So Soren and Lyra have a story. They have a story, in case everyone forgot, because we got like 1 scene of them last episode, and they've actually got a pretty compelling story. I like the story that they're telling with Soren and Lyra and Kessler, but I feel like I don't know if it's just it's a short story, so they don't have enough time in the episodes to do it. But I think they got like 2 scenes in this whole episode. All they needed was 2 scenes, but it's kind of like, I want to see more of it, you know? But basically what their story is that they get to Thermopylae, which is a Spartan training facility. Once Soren and Lyra get there, Soren retells the story, or tells the story of how when he was at a Spartan training facility as a kid, that they went through this training program where they had to fight off a bunch of guys with batons. And he said that like it was terrifying because they were kids going up against adults, kind of thing. And he said that some of us stood there and bled, and most of us ran. He said some of us ran, most of us ran. And then he says the ones that stood their ground and fought were the ones that eventually like sort of became Spartans. And what was interesting is he said that he stood and fought. So did John, Master Chief, and so did Vanek, Riz, and Kai. So like the whole of Silver Team.
Yep.
Which I thought was a really cool like little scene just to say that like that's where he belongs almost. I feel like it's kind of more metaphorical to say that's the team that he belongs to. And there's a lot more on Soren that we're going to get to. He also says in the scene that he actually wants this for Kessler. Like he says he wants Kessler to go through that because it's going to kind of make Kessler a man. I don't know if Soren's kind of wanting Kessler to become a Spartan. Like he kind of maybe I'm getting from this that he kind of regrets leaving the Spartans. Obviously, there's something that's talked about later, which we're going to get to. But I'm getting from this that he's kind of like I want my son back. I need to go find my son. But the fact that he's been so happy-go-lucky about it the whole time, I'm wondering if he's thinking like, ooh, Kessler's with the UNSC. Maybe he'll become a Spartan. I'm pretty okay with that.
I really like this. I think this is it's smart writing. Like here, like because I think anybody who's ever served like in a military or even been a part of like a group, like whether it's like Boy Scouts or like Girl Scouts or something, like there's a camaraderie, right? Like, and you're like a little bit of a family outside of your family, right? And like for some people, it's everything, right? Like military becomes like who you are, like your own, like how you identify, right? And like he identifies as a Spartan, even though he's not a Spartan anymore. Like he doesn't have the suit of armor, and even his wife is sort of like, you were looking for Halsey when even not to hurt her, but you just wanted to reconnect, right? Get back to that, right? And I think this is like really smart, like really like subtle things that kind of you unpack here. Like this is a big unpacking moment for him and her. And the fact that he's like wants his kid to kind of go through that because he thinks it'll be a growing moment for him. Like he needs to be a man. Like he's sort of like, he needs to go through this to know who he is. Right. Which is kind of an interesting, like when you think about that from a public service standpoint, like a lot of people think you should go into service, right? Like service should be something that everybody should do because it kind of shows like who you are. Like you kind of build more character and there's a lot of truth to that. And he believes in that, and he wants his kid to go through that. And there's so this felt like honest, great, good character storytelling.
Yeah.
But his wife is like, fuck that shit. I don't want my kid to go through this hell, which is also like on point. Like I think any mother would want that as well. So this is really, really cool. I'm not sure I liked how it all panned out, but I thought this conversation was really strong.
So moving on from there, we then get to Perez, and Perez is like gearing up. I think she's in the next unit that's going to be sent out, and she's getting ready in her Spartan 3 armor and everything. And then Mullins, who was, I think it was like the team leader in that simulation they were doing in the last episode, she's like really nervous, and she's thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous that I'm gonna die. And then Perez is very hard-ass to her, and she's becoming quite a badass. I think maybe it's because she's so angry with the Covenant. She just wants revenge, obviously, from like what happened to her family on Reach. But she kind of says to, which I think is really cool dialogue as well. She says to Mullins, like, you can't be scared for yourself when you go out there. You need to be scared for me because I'm going to be scared for you, and that's how we're going to cover each other when we go there. I like how Perez is kind of taking charge like that. She's kind of interesting. I don't know where they're going with their story, if that's going to pay off at all, because there's a lot more important things that need to.
Depending on things, they might be setting her up for future storylines along with the Spartan 3/4s going forward, maybe. I wonder if she'll be similar to like Palmer. Is it Palmer, right? Tom?
Yeah, Palmer. Yeah.
Palmer was like one of the lead Spartan 4s.
True. Yes.
Okay. I feel like it's another thing that they're kind of trying to set up for a season 3. Hopefully we get a season 3. Because it's something I feel like can't really pay off now, because it's, I mean, maybe they've got a clever way to do it. I don't know. We'll have to wait. We don't have time.
Anytime Perez is on screen, I'm engaged. I don't know why. I think it might be the actress, like Christina Rodolo or whatever her name is. Rodlo. She's I think she's gorgeous. She's great. Eyes. She's like out of any character, like she sort of has like a great presence. Like I kind of just want to I want to see more of her. And I think she's just she's a gorgeous woman, but I think her acting's really good. I think she has a great career ahead of her. But I just like the fact that we're seeing her like a character like her in the show. Like, I think it's smart. I think it was a really smart writing decision. The only thing is, I think this episode's. This goes back to, like, I think I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I think the biggest fault is there's too many side stories, right? I think they kind of it worked when Perez was with Master Chief, like a lot, like in those moments. But now that she has her thing and Chief is doing her thing, and and now we have Halsey doing her thing, and like everyone's off, like and like the show feels very sporadic now. Yeah. But that would be my only critique.
It's tough squeezing it all into 8 episodes now, when it's like, okay, if this was maybe like 12 or 15 episodes and you had a few episodes in between to breathe. But even if we did have those episodes to breathe, we'd be sitting here complaining like, oh, this is a slow side episode about Perez. Right. Who cares if we want to go back to Master Chief?
Totally.
So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing.
Yeah. I
do love Perez, though. I want to echo that.
She is great. I really like her. She's in a movie called No One. I think it's called No One Gets Out Alive. It's like a horror, like a realism kind of horror movie, which is really, really good. If you guys haven't seen it, go and check it out. It's a very, very good movie, and it stars Perez. We then get back to Chief and Kai, and it's an interesting scene here because Kai is very much trying to justify herself. Kai's saying like, "Oh, I didn't know. How could I have known?" Chief is still pretty angry. Like, this is because we didn't see Chief confront Kai last week, right? Chief was kind of just taking the beating. He was like, whatever, where's the girl I grew up with? And now Chief's all pissed off. He's like, cool, well, I made my mark emotionally. And now Chief's like all petty and angry with him. With her,
she's like a little, like a puppy trying to like, Chief, like me again. Chief, I'm here. Do you need help, Chief? I saved your life back there. Do you see that? Hey, Chief. She's like, it's just like she's like following him around, like he's just like looking for his armor. Where are you going, Chief? Chief, what are you looking for? How can I help you? Like, I was just like, what is happening right now?
Like the little dog in the old Looney Tunes cartoon that chases the bulldog around.
Notice me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, please like me again, Chief. Why are you so mad at me? Oh yeah, I beat the shit out of you with my armor last episode. I forgot.
Yeah, bygones.
Yeah.
But the other interesting scene, a part to that scene, which I think we're all very excited about, is Cortana is showing Chief around the station to find his suit, to find his armor. So it's like, as soon as they mentioned that, I was like, oh, you better put that freaking armor on.
Finally, holy shit.
Finally. We then go back to Halsey, and Halsey is still working with Miranda and everyone in the caves. Halsey very much, I wrote here, Halsey very much seemed like she was on her crazy train again. She had that like crazy look in her eyes to be like, yes, we need to study this. This is the answer to everything. And it's like, okay, calm down, lady. But she said the DNA that she found was the key to unlocking the Halo. And she explains that's why they took children, and specifically Chief. I didn't know what to read into that, because she was like, the DNA was key, but like, how did they know which kids had the DNA? Were they just looking for special kids? Or she obviously found Chief, which was the whole thing, but like, why take the kids? Very confused. She said she needed to make the Spartans, but it's like, it's still kind of vague.
The DNA being combined or a hybrid of it, and then they looked for traces of those DNA sequences in people.
Chief just happened to have like maybe like a high count, like your midichlorians in Star Wars.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, oh, your
you got more midichlorians.
DNA is pretty good.
So, because of that, are we supposed to, as like, say, I've never seen Halo, are we supposed to assume that the Forerunners or humans are descendants from Forerunners? Like, why would Chief have Forerunner DNA in him?
Time travel.
Crossbreeding.
Cross
osmosis.
Osmosis. Yeah.
Cross species osmosis.
Makes sense.
It always comes back to osmosis.
Yeah, I don't know. I was a little like, I didn't quite pick up all where they were going with that.
Anyways, moving on from there, Quan is also in the scene. She seems to have like a special connection to this place. She goes to one of like the big gates or things or whatever, and she like almost touches one of the pieces and it lights up. And it was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. We don't really get to see that payoff just yet. We'll get to it. But then we get back to Ackerson. And super interesting reveal in this episode. Ackerson didn't know the truth about the simulation. He finds out the truth. And this is like, I guess, the big reveal. He finds out the truth about the simulation and sees if you like put that spike in the ship, then it creates an explosion. And I love how they revealed this, where he's like, okay, zoom out a little bit. And then he sees like a big explosion. And then he's like, okay, zoom out a little bit. and he sees the big explosion, and eventually you see that it's an entire like solar system. What does he say? A star system or something?
Pretty much.
So it's like a huge explosion. Isn't
It's
just
take
like
out an entire
the ship,
galaxy
like,
essentially.
Exactly, and it's something to do with the fusion. Like they explain it later, it's the fusion reactor in the ship. It like creates this chain reaction that just blows up everything, Oppenheimer style.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
that's like
I
that
mean,
was.
I get that it's a sci-fi show, but like, I don't know how like one reactor would create an explosion that large, right? Like I was kind of like one ship's reactor is powerful enough to do that much damage, even overloaded, like or reversed. I don't know. Like it was a little like.
You have to think it's not just one ship. One ship will explode, and then the ones next to it will explode, and it's just chain reaction of explosions make big
I
explosions.
suppose so.
I mean, you don't see that in the simulation. It was just the one ship, though. In
Yeah.
the simulation. They were like,
Yeah, right.
You can assume that that's what would happen. Like they will just join together in explosion.
They will join together in osmosis explosion.
the osmosis.
Oh, we're never going to live that down. But
You're
for narrative
welcome.
purposes, we'll say that that ship's going to explode and blow up everything. So Ackerson's like, holy shit, I got to confront the admiral
That's
about
not what I
this.
wanted my
He's
Spartans
gotta do
for.
something." Exactly.
Yeah.
I got to protect my little baby Spartans.
As he
So
clutches
he's like,
his belt.
"Ooh, you see his face like harden." He's like, "Ooh, I gotta go and confront Perangosky right now." And then he heads to the door, and who's at the door? Kai and Chief. And they
Gets a nice,
like that's
gets
so
a nice
funny.
throat grab. Hello.
Yeah,
A
he just
throat
gets
grab,
immediately just like. And I like the dialogue in this as well, where he says, Chief says to Ackerson, like he's got him by the throat, and he says to Kai, "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill this guy." And Kai says, "Honestly, nothing comes to mind." I thought he was gonna. For a second, I thought he was gonna kill Ackerson right there.
Yeah.
Just like he could have just like gone.
But they need his face.
Does it need
I
to
know,
be
they
attached?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they gave it a little bit of like, oh, his face ID to unlock the thing. He's like attached or whatever.
Attached,
Yeah.
right?
There's some
Really
good bits in there too, especially
Yeah.
like when Chief says to Ackerson, like, "Well, I came in here to put a hole in your chest, but
Yeah, watch your die bleeding
watch
or
the
whatever.
life
Yeah.
drain from your eyes."
Guys, yeah.
So in this scene, it was interesting how Ackerson kind of reacted to things. I feel like he's really, really primed to sort of redeem himself and do something to help, which we obviously see some of that a little bit later in the episode.
Just stay alive, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there could be a little bit of self-survival here.
Hey, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. But I feel like he's very much like starting to turn that corner. Or maybe he's gaslighting me. Typical freaking Ackerson.
He's had you guys questioning all season,
Oh.
like, well, there's a little bit of a redeeming factor going on here.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So Chief tells Ackerson like he's kind of like, okay, where's my armor? Take me to my armor. And Ackerson says like, I know where it is, but he has to tell. He then tells Kai and Chief, listen, this is a bomb and it's going to explode everything, which very much sets Chief off because Chief is like, okay, well the Halo's here now, so he's got to obviously get to work there because he's got to get to it before it's destroyed, and this could potentially destroy it. And that's where the stakes of the episode are finally kind of revealed and everything. I've loved the dialogue in this series so far, man. It's been so cool. And Ackerson kind of, starts to sort of feel bad, and he's like, this bomb could wipe out like, all of the Spartans that are there and everyone. And he's like, my Spartans keep getting sent in there to die. And Chief is like, since when did you care about the Spartans? And Ackerson says, these Spartans are my life's work. And I love it. Chief says, I've heard that before.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because like this is where it reveals where like he's like, and it'll destroy the Halo, and he's sort of like good, right? Because he's on like him and McKay when they left, they were like, no, like she's like, I want to have babies with you on Halo, and he's like, oh, that doesn't sound fun. He's like, I want to blow shit up, and I want to blow up your race, like you decide you're
osmosis,
right?
babies.
Yeah. I don't want to do osmosis right now. Later, maybe.
I don't want to blow up your back. I want to blow up your planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nice, Tom. So this is interesting. So he's sort of siding with Perangosky here, which is like, again, like my point earlier was like, well, yeah, Perangosky's got a point. Like, if instead of the Covenant getting Halo, no one gets Halo. Like, that's my goal. I will send Spartans until someone
as many as it takes.
As many as it takes. So I was like, okay, this is actually like, okay, if Chief's on board too. Like, he's not an idiot. So I really like this moment. Like this tied things together better, because at this point I was sort of like, where the fuck are we going in this episode? Like what's
It
happening?
kind of like explained everything properly. Like like I felt like in the scene everyone was kind of okay, gotcha.
Right.
So moving then back to Miranda and Halsey and Quan and everyone, and Miranda finally asks about keys and what happened. So she didn't know. She said that there was a bunch of survivors that left and went all over the galaxy, I guess. And I was very intrigued to see this interaction between Halsey and Miranda, because I didn't think that Halsey would tell her the truth. I think she'd maybe hide it or allude to something else. But Halsey does it. She tells the truth, and she says she was there. She saw it. He died, and he's freaking dead. He better be freaking dead.
I still take it
I hate it
that
when they-
her
I hate
little
it when they
notion of being
hide-
like, but there's survivors
hate
all over
it.
the galaxy.
I hate it when they hide someone's body during death, and then they say, "Oh, he's alive." Like, it's so cheap, and I hate it.
You must have
Like,
hated season
Are
3
you
of
still
Stranger
sticking with
Things.
your theory, Dan, that he's alive? You're still holding to it?
No. I just
It's not really a theory, but it's a good point that like you don't see the body.
honestly, like, I talked about it with
I don't need
Brandy
shit on
the
that.
other day. Like, the real death of Keys is so much more horrible. Like,
Oh, really?
if we get the actual
fucked.
Keys death, it's terrible. So this is actually a better, more honorable way for him to die
Okay.
as a character.
On that, I do have a character who I think will fill his spot, and we'll get to that. But
Okay.
one thing that I kind of which I wish had another episode or more time, was like Miranda's reaction was very much like you had to go through like the stages of grief, which was real quick, and then as she's walking away, and then it was just like 2 seconds later, she's like, "Okay, I'm fine."
Yeah.
It's like your dad died. Like, come on, like at least like a minute of you, like at least cry a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
Well, and that could have been a good moment for Hazley to kind of like console her a little bit, like give her, what's that? Halsey, whatever. Give her a moment to console her, and kind of a little show, because I think what's interesting about this season, they're kind of giving her a redemption arc a little bit. Like, she was really one note first season, bad guy, like crazy scientist, like doing whatever for the good of, to get her whatever she wants, right? And this one, it's sort of like she's on her back feet, right, trying to like a little bit of redemption, and kind of like in everyone's eyes, I think, which is cool. I like this more. She's still batshit crazy, don't get me wrong. She still wants to do the wrong things, and she's always like plotting 4 steps ahead of everyone else, which is great. But I think she still feels a little bit more human, and this more gray on her character.
She was definitely very grating with Miranda a couple times in those scenes too, especially like when she's telling her like, it took you 4 months to figure this out, and then she's like, now I know how to do this part, and Halsey's like, well, is this gonna take long? She's like, not 4 months long. Click.
Yeah.
Like, bitch.
She doesn't break eye contact, just like, the fuck you looking at?
Yeah.
There's something interesting in this. Something else interesting in the scene as well is that Quan finally, like playing with her little doohickey, she pulls it out and reveals like a big map, or we think it's a map. At that point, we get to see like a star system, like hologram-ish type thing that kind of just reveals itself, and we're like, oh, that's amazing. That's really cool. Is it a map? Is it something? And then we go back to Chief, and he reaches his armor. We get to a big room where they've got all of Silver Team's armor, -1, which is Kai's, which obviously is somewhere else. But we get to this room. Chief obviously sees his armor, but what was like heartbreaking is he goes over to Vanek's armor, and he stands right in front of it, and he says to Kai, like, I couldn't save him. And it was just like, oh man, that one hit me. I was like, I thought we were done with feeling
all the
like
feels for
emotionally
Vanek
destroyed. For Vanek.
Yeah, they're really milking the Vanek death for a while here. Yeah, I think what was really cool too is like and this is great, I thought, really strong, where he's like, he was just confused, like, why, how did this happen? He wasn't even like sad or angry. I forget exactly the dialogue, but he said like he was confused, like he didn't know how he got here, like how he could be in this situation. I was like, that's interesting, because as a Spartan, you're kind of like, you're always going to win, right? You know, like they're built to win. So I thought that was really cool. Like, was there
a line too where Vanek looked at Chief like, how we getting out of this, and there was like this, we're not essentially.
Aside from that, those lines dialogue where Vanek's like, he's just confused, I liked how when they first went in there, Kai was looking at the empty spot where her armor would go, and like I assumed that like she was thinking, oh, if I didn't say yes to Ackerson, that's where mine would be, and I could also be dead. Like she was just like pure, like coincidentally that she was the one that went with them.
I didn't think about it. I actually didn't think about it. I thought like, oh, cool, Kai's armor's not there because she was using it recently. But it could also be like a symbolic thing to say that she's not part of Silver Team anymore.
She's not part of Silver Team anymore.
That's interesting. That's nice. I didn't catch that either. I was actually a little confused why her armor wasn't in there. Like, where the fuck is she storing it? She's not wearing it right now. You know, like I was kind of like a little like I didn't quite. And she was staring at it too, like the empty space. Like, hey, where'd my armor go? Like I was like, what do you mean? You don't know where your armor is, lady? Like I was like, I didn't quite understand where they were going. But I like the way you brought that around.
She just took it off in the hall and just left it there.
Well, that's why I thought like she would like had that like was having that thought process of like, oh, like I'm not like important in these people. I wasn't expendable as well. I just happened to be the one person that like they could have used.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way when I was watching. Chief has kind of got a plan now. So he's got his suit, he's got his plan, he's ready to go. And he tells Ackerson that he must tell the truth about what happened on Reach and his plan and everything. And Ackerson's kind of like, how am I ever going to prove that? And Chief says, well, I'm your proof. I'm the proof of Parangoski's plan and how, you know, it obviously it went off. And then Ackerson, like he says, like, I'm going to get destroyed. And then there's a really great line of dialogue where Chief says, well, somebody in war, somebody always pays. This time it's you. The show continues to just have such good dialogue, dude. I freaking love it. There's a couple of great lines of dialogue in this episode as well.
That makes me think about the whole thing with Parangoski and how she's been doing all this deep manipulation, and even goes back to like Drew. You were saying you didn't understand why Parangoski was doing what she was doing in the beginning. You were like, to what end? She's been playing this long con the whole time.
Yeah, she was on Reach. She obviously used Cortana. She's been there the entire time. You know, I feel like we just need, like, you know that song from One Division where it is like, it was Agatha all along.
And I killed Sparky too.
I feel like we need it was Parangoski.
Yeah, we need that along with like, you know how like a whodunit movies and stuff where they do like the recap where like it flashes to all the scenes where like it'll show Parangoski like handing a piece of paper to like someone else, and then like with the schematics for the spike back in episode 1. Like I need like the recap to like show her like manipulating like all the moments, right? Like, you know, like if it was like Knives Out and
the
like,
big reveal sequence.
Yeah, the big reveal sequence where you see like, oh my god, she's been doing it since that, you know, since like season 1, like season 1 shit, you know, you're like, what?
And like all those smash zooms, so like she hands over a thing and looks at the camera and then it goes right. Then back to Quan, and she's still fiddling around with this map thing that's like all the stars have appeared, and she seems to know about this, and like somehow she just knows about this.
I know.
And she says it's not a map, but it's a clock. I was like, yeah, okay, it looks like a clock. Yes. But at first I was like, how is it a clock? That makes absolutely no sense. Like, what are you on about, lady? And then she starts rearranging all the stars around. And I was like, actually, that's kind of brilliant because it's like the star's location at a specific time. And I was like, actually, that's kind of cool. And then she starts fiddling around, putting all the stars in different places. And eventually that opens a door in this cave. And Halsey's thrilled. She's like, hell yeah, I'm keeping this crazy chick around. And they then enter this door, which totally for me, I was like, dude, are they entering a tomb? Like, it just felt like they're Tomb Raiders now, and they're just entering this tomb.
I was like, cue the Uncharted music, and like, can Nathan Drake show up? Like, is like, wre's Nolan North to show up in Nathan Drake's outfit? And be like,
I had a completely different vibe from that whole scene because the fact that there is a chasm with 2 big doors on either end, and then they had the hard light bridge activates. My first thought is that first hard light bridge in Halo 1 to cross the chasm, and it's just like this big reveal to the Forerunner technology, and like this is the first time they're really seeing firsthand Forerunner anything. So it was a completely different vibe for me on that.
Oh no, I love this part. Like this, the whole like I love puzzles. Like again, I go back to Uncharted. Like this part where they're solving this like scientific puzzle, this thing, and it's
science
like,
mystery.
Yeah, like this was like I was in. Like I lean in, right? Like this is the moment where I get in, and I'm like, okay, tell me things, show me things. show me how this technology is cool. Show me why this is all important. Give me the, because like I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, like what the fuck is the Halo? Why should I care? Like, I think that's the biggest problem with this show. Like, if you're watching it, we get Master Chief. We know why we want him because he's awesome. But why Halo? Why is the show called Halo? And why should we care about this thing? All we hear is that it's really cool. People want it. It could bring life. It could destroy life. It's a weapon.
To do with a great journey.
Yeah, it's like this really, but we don't really understand like the lore behind it. And finally, we fucking get an episode like this where they like talk about like and start explaining like who these people were that built the thing, that this planet was was built by the same technology. We're starting to get a glimpse of like what that might mean. Like this is the stuff I think the show should be sprinkling in more every episode, not like this big info dump here like in the pre-ultimate episode to the end of the season. Like this should have been season 1 episode 2 shit like should be going on here, right?
This is something we talked about a couple of times I think throughout this show discussion of like we need more of these lore fillers to let us kind of like have a better understanding of what's happening.
I really liked what they were doing with their stories, and all of the stuff was so intriguing and so interesting. And I like how they kept sort of ending as soon as it got interesting, it ended. So before we even get across that light bridge and everything, we then head back to Kai and Chief. And Kai says that, well, she's kind of like, okay, cool. Well, you and me, Chief, we're going to go help the Spartan 3s and their suicide mission. We've got to go fight with them. We've got to help them. She very much seems like the mother hen of the Spartans. Like she's kind of like, they're my children. I have to go and save them, which is kind of cool. I feel like she's kind of growing to be that kind of leadership or leader type of role. Chief is not interested in that at all. He's like, no, I can't do that. He's far more concerned with the Halo. And like we were saying, that kind of becomes the end game of this episode. So rightly so. It's like, yeah, I'd like to be fighting with the Spartans, which we get to see a little bit more when he has a conversation with Perez later. But Chief is like, no, I've got to go find the Halo. As much as I think he really wants to fight with the Spartans, but he's like, I got to go find this Halo thing. This is the most important part. Chief then lets Kai go after her baby Spartans and help them in their fight. And Chief does say, like, if it comes down to it, Kai, with the spike, and obviously he's saying, like, if it comes down to it and you've got the spike, you got to do it. But Kai says, just get to the Halo. So obviously Kai seems to know about the Halo now as well. I don't know if Kai even knew what the Halo was before this episode, but it just kind of seems like, this is what I was saying earlier, it kind of just seems like everyone just knows about Halo now, like all of a sudden. Which I suppose helps in the narrative to like kind of keep things moving instead of having to explain it to every single character. But it kind of, a lot of these things feel a little bit quick. There's a really cool shot there next where Chief looks at his reflection in that beautiful, beautiful gold visor of his. And I'm just thinking at this point of the scene, I'm just thinking, dude, just put the damn thing on. Like, stop teasing us.
I know.
Stop just put the freaking armor on, dude. I liked it. I liked it specifically that he saw his reflection in the visor, because last week's episode he says to Cortana, Cortana says, you have to get up because you are the Master Chief. He says like he's broken after being like clotheslined by Kai. He's lying on the ground and he says, not anymore. So I like the scene because he kind of looks at the visor and he sees himself in it. So he kind of sees he is the Master Chief again, which I thought was a nice touch. Moving on from there, before we get Chief's armor on, we then go back to the Tomb Raiders, and Halsey uses, they then get over that light bridge, and Halsey then uses that key that they had before to open the door to this tomb. Sorry, no, it's not a tomb. It's a laboratory.
Didi, what are you doing in my laboratory?
And it's a laboratory of sorts. There's beakers and all kinds of junk everywhere. And they then find a scientist or someone in the fetal position called up, and they say it's not human. But what is it?
Is it the librarian?
No, because she was like on a different world. No,
Sorry.
Okay.
Fuck off. No,
Sorry.
I was waiting for the flood to just like be in that laboratory, because like the thing with the Halos is like that's where they researched how to destroy the flood when realized they couldn't, which is why the Halos destroy everything else. So I was just waiting like, oh cool, there's just gonna be like one little spore. There's be one little guy who's just been chilling out.
So who is on the floor? It's clearly
it's a Forerunner.
Well, yeah, that's I guess assumed, right?
Just a random scientist Forerunner who's probably trying to find ways to weaponize the flood or use the I'm assuming flood,
and just lays on the ground and dies one day. Like, hey, I'm done.
Maybe
I'm done.
Maybe maybe they locked themselves in there and then just died of starvation.
Yeah.
Could be.
Maybe to protect, well, maybe to protect because that scientist that was lying there was clutching an artifact, some kind of device or something, and maybe they were trying to protect that. They locked themselves in there to protect it. We don't know what that is. And sneakily, Miranda swipes it as they're getting out because the whole place begins to rumble and that light bridge begins to crumble away. And I'm like, sure, this is not a tomb. I felt pretty Uncharted-ish to me.
Yeah. Oh, and we don't know why. Like, did anybody pick up on why?
No reason. No, Uncharted reasons.
Can we spend 1 second on Quan and like, can someone explain to me how or why she sees this? Like, she's having these flashbacks to these caves. They haven't explained any of this, right? Did I miss something in an episode?
She talked about having a vision, and I'm like, where was the
like
vision? When was this vision?
No, because
I don't.
So like it was in episode 1 at the end. Quan was in the cave on the rubble, putting like
I remember that
crazy
part.
on the wall. Yeah, and then she explained it here, like when she was fiddling around with the stars, that she just like had a dream, and like it was like a frenzied thing that she had to like write stuff down. But that leads back to season 1, but she was in the like the desert shamans and all that sort of crap, and her family, his connection to the Forerunners and Guilty Spark and all that sort of fun stuff, which is
so
why
the Hans have some connection to the Forerunners.
Yeah, because remember how like in season 1 they were like the Haarmsa have protected Madrigal for X amount of years, and they had shown the Guilty Spark looking dude, the monitor.
I mean, there's something I want to jump back to after we finish with Quan. But now that we're talking about Quan, what does she mean by growth when she says growth and what does that mean?
Spreading.
I was wondering if maybe you guys like could talk, because that sounds like something like the flood would flood and grow. And
yeah, that's how I would assume it's flood spreading.
I just assumed like it was growing. Yeah, it was growing and spreading across all the different stars, and like we've pressed the big release button, and now everything's going to go to shit.
So just jumping back a little bit, when they were still getting out of the tomb or the lab, when they're trying to get over that light bridge, Halsey stops because she sees everything lighting up, and she's like, it's a city, like she sees, and she's amazed by all of this. But the light bridge is like crumbling, and she's got to get off there. And Miranda's like, come on. And then Miranda calls her mom, I think for the first time. And Halsey's like immediately snapped out of it. She's like, what? She's like, I don't know if like she's never heard that from Miranda before or anything, but they seem to very much be like growing closer, which is pretty interesting. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on that.
Which is where I think if she had consoled her earlier about her dad dying, this would have made this hit even harder.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, if they're trying to soften Halsey, yeah, I don't know if they're trying necessarily, or it could have just been that slight kind of misdirection again, but
yeah,
it's hard to say what they're trying to do with Halsey as a character at this point.
I really like those moments with Halsey and Miranda. I feel like they're kind of bonding a little bit more as mother and daughter. There was some nice little mother-daughter moments there, and I just felt like the show's kind of making us care about them and their relationship. One of them is so dead, right?
I don't think one of those two will die anytime soon.
I don't think Halsey will die, but I think Miranda maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the show is just making us care about them too much. So back with McKay and the Arbiter, and the Arbiter's taken out all the. I thought it was interesting. He called them infidels, and he's taken all of them out. So like they sort of fine in their little ship, but the fleet has found them, and that obviously is revealed earlier in the episode where the fleet just arrives to find them, and then McKay tells him that she has fallen. I think she tells him that she's lost the connection to the artifact and everything. Yeah. And the Arbiter says, she says, like, I can't help you anymore. And the Arbiter says that she's already helped him show him his redemption. So it's like you guys were talking about with the Arbiter, is that he's got to redeem himself in some way. So obviously he sees this as his way to redeem himself. I thought, like, finally he kind of recognized that. And then McKay brands herself with the Arbiter sigil or symbol. And it was brutal. The way she screamed, it was well acted. I was like, damn, I felt it too. I was like, geez, my chest is kind of sore as well. So she says that she is bound to him, and says they are bound to the ring, which I'm assuming they mean Halo, right?
Yeah.
It's maybe there's no Sangheili word for Halo. Maybe they just call it the ring because that's what they call it.
They call it the sacred ring.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting point here is like somehow the fleet found them, and somehow they were already on their way to Halo. Like, again, I think there's like either like there's some shit on the cutting room floor here, but like she comes out of the thing. It's not like we're going to the Halo. Like, you know, there was never like an order like Mark 413, Mark 382 or whatever, like engage. Like there's no Star Trek moment where they're like, we're going to the Halo. Like it was just sort of like we're here and the fleet found us and you're like, what the fuck? Like how did we get here?
So quick.
Like, and it was so fast. It was like, it felt like it happened in 10 minutes. Like everything in this episode time-wise is a little all over the place. Like I don't really understand.
It reminded me of one of the big criticisms I had on the Last of Us TV show, where I feel like they had key moments that they just rushed through. Like one of the moments in The Last of Us is where Joel and Ellie meet, and then Joel is convinced to, smuggle Ellie out of the city. And it's like a big, important moment of the story. And in the game, that's like a whole level. So it takes a couple of hours to do that. In the show, that whole thing happened in like the span of 2 minutes. And I'm like, it's a massively important moment. Like it just rushed through it, and I feel like it's like this, where it's like this massively important moment of everyone finding out where the Halo is kind of just like, boop, all of us know where it is. It's like a light switch. All of us know where it is now.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of like, oh, there it is. We've been looking for that for years.
Oh, hey there. It's been there all the whole time.
It is. Oh, can't believe I didn't see it before.
They were practically neighbors. You know, yeah. I mean, it's like,
exactly.
You could have run into it.
Oh, so then we go back to Soren, and the kids start this like was such a like I was so invested in the story, and he sees the kids on Thermopylae. The kids start that training mission where we see Kessler's one of the kids, and those guys with the batons come out, and they start this training mission, and Lyra desperately is kind of like, we need to get like Kessler out of this. And we get the big sort of emotional change, or the big switch for Soren, where he jumps down there because he wanted this for Kessler, right? And then he jumps down there and he takes out the guys with the batons to, I guess, save Kessler and the rest of the kids, which is quite an interesting moment where Soren kind of goes back on what he was feeling earlier. What was your guys' take on that?
I think it was him trying to. Oh fuck! I don't. I think he just had a change of heart. Really, like he saw it and then he realized, probably don't want like my little baby child to do this, or maybe he was just trying to like make peace with Lyra at the end of the day.
I think it's Soren kind of saying like, I know how terrible that was for me, and maybe he's now growing as a character and he's thinking, you know what, Kessler doesn't have to go through this maybe. And I'm thinking maybe Soren is like, I'll train him myself rather than, you know, making him go through that kind of pain and hardship.
Yeah, but I think like I think the biggest thing that hurts this specific story is just that, like I've said before, there's just not enough time, and it's gone. It has so many different things the show wants to get to, like you get with Halo and all that sort of stuff. But it just does feel like an afterthought, and then like we have to assume these motivations, like we don't even see like much of it. So I think that just bleeds into like the time constraints. Yeah.
I mean, this scene was pretty crazy because Soren is kicking all these dudes' asses, like he is owning them. And he kind of looks back, and Kessler's there, and Kessler takes off this mask or helmet thing that he was wearing, and he kind of looks at his dad, and he seems a bit scared. I don't know if it was just me, but I saw him. He seemed kind of like, at that moment. What the hell? Yeah. And then Lyra gets in there, desperately tries to take Kessler away so that, you know, like he's not going to get in any danger. And then they get captured by someone. I don't know who they got captured by. I'm guessing it's UNSC people. The same kind of people. I don't know. And then, you know, Soren has to fight off a few more of them, and that's where the episode kind of ends. So I'm very interested to see what happens there and how that ties into the finale next week, because it's just, all of a sudden the story just got really, really intriguing and really interesting. We then go back to Perez, and I really love this scene because Perez is like geared up in her Spartan 3 armor and everything, and then Master Chief walks in his armor. He's finally got the armor on, and I like how Chief says to Perez, "Nice suit." And I'm just thinking, I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm going, "Ditto, Chief! Nice suit yourself, bro." I haven't seen that finally. In freaking.
That was definitely better, like a revisit of character as opposed to like when Chief and Quan reconnected. When Perez and Chief reconnected, it was way more like more weighty and more impactful.
In the scene, Perez also talks about Chief's luck, and she kind of says to him maybe he controls it. I think she kind of implies that. So it's kind of, I'm wondering if Chief maybe believes that, oh, he's just lucky, and now Perez is kind of planting that seed of like maybe he controls his own fate, maybe he controls his own luck kind of thing. So that was quite interesting. But she's also kind of upset, a little bit disappointed that Chief's not going to be fighting with him and the other Spartans. And it's kind of, I don't know if they're also setting that up for Perez to maybe die at some point, but I don't think they kill off her character. We then go back to Miranda and Halsey, and they talk about the artifact that they've just discovered. I don't think there's really anything interesting we know about the artifact yet. It's kind of just this chunk of metal or whatever it is. We don't know what it is, right? Miranda is able to open that device. She's able to like switch it open a little bit, but Halsey's already left. She's already gone as this happened. I don't know where she went. We have no idea where she went. And one thing I wanted to say as well is I feel like the scientist died clutching this artifact, and they mentioned that this artifact might have been her life's work. And I thought that's a really cool metaphor on like Halsey, is that she's kind of always been clutching her life's work and is willing to kind of die for it and things. Okay, theories, go.
Okay, I'm gonna go first because I have multiple. So I think that inside the little artifact thing was a flood spore. Like the person's life's work was researching flood. So I think now that it's opened, I think that it will spread, because there'll be like one person who'll be an idiot and be like, oh, what's this thing? And then they get infected. And then I think Onyx itself will become a flood haven and just covered in it. And I think Perengosky is going to become the keys in this situation and become like the grave mine thing. And when that happens, the flood goes through all their memories, and that's where I think we can have like the flashback of like Perengosky doing all the evil shit and whatnot. And that's where I also think Soren's story is going to lead into it, because next season it could be Soren, Lyra, and Kessler have to get away from the flood on Onyx because it's just fucked now.
Yeah. That was more or less my exact same theory. Is when that thing popped open, it was kind of like that flash to like Aliens or any other horror movie where it's like, they just released the big bad. That was it, that little pop. And it's like, yeah, I had the exact same thought that was there's a flood spore in there, or there's flood something in there. And I'm just like, Miranda's fucked. And that's why Halsey left. Halsey left because she's like,
I was gonna say maybe that's why Halsey got the hell out of there. So it's like this: someone just broke open the T-virus.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So the flood is like legitimately like a zombie infection kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah.
It's so crazy. No, is there a cure for the flood?
The halo.
But I don't think Miranda's going to die. I don't
Not
think
yet.
she's going to. Yeah, she'll die eventually. But I don't think she'll succumb to the flood. I think Perengosky's going to fill that role of, because she's got all the info.
Moving on from there, we then get back to Chief, and he walks through the station, Onyx station, I guess, and he's in his armor, and people are stoked. People are kind of like standing at attention. They're like, hey, it's Master Chief. Like, he's inspiring that hope. And I think it's obviously everyone's been looking at his posters forever. And we now get to see him actually, and people kind of like, oh my word, he's still alive. Like, it was quite cool to see people getting like inspired. We then go to Perengosky, and Ackerson is there, and Perengosky knows Ackerson has been snooping around, like checking out the spike simulations and things like that. And then Master Chief announces himself and takes a ship, and they've got no way to stop the ship. I guess Cortana's like messing with their systems and stuff. But that sort of scene starts this montage-ish type of thing where we see Chief in a ship ready to go. Kai is readying the Spartans. She tells Perez that Chief isn't coming, and we see like inside her eyes that she's kind of disappointed about that. And then Chief arrives after being in, what is it called?
Slip space.
Slip space.
So is that like hyperspeed or hyperspace in
light speed,
Star Wars?
Warp speed?
It's like the fast travel kind of thing. Yeah. Right. So
Space
Chief
zoomies.
exits out of his space zoomies, and he gets to the fleet's location, and he kind of looks up to the side. He sees one lonely little ship, and then he looks up, and the music swells as we see the Halo.
It's that thing.
Did you guys hear that Halo music kick in? I was like, oh, it's just like as we see the Halo as well. It was amazing. But again, like there's a whole fleet of people over there, and then you literally just look to the right, and the Halo's right there. Like everyone's right there.
Yeah, I think Chief's going to feel bad for the Spartans and be like,
yeah, I was expecting him to like turn towards the Armada and like I'm going to help them.
Even in the trailer, we see like the one where Chief, like in the initial season trailer, like he's standing at the back of a Pelican looking at a space battle. Haven't got that yet, so I'm assuming this is the big.
Yeah, like he's going to dive in there and save the Spartans. Because there was the whole
Either
thing with the
way-
coin too,
Yeah.
like at the end where he's looking at
Oh
the
yeah, he
coin.
finds a coin in the ship.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe that's tying into next week. He's got a choice: heads or tails. Go to the Halo or go to the Armada.
And she says you can control things. So
You control things. You get to choose. Oh, full circle. That's why you watch podcasts. Damn, that was cool. That was fun. I like that.
light bulb.
Light
Light
bulbs.
bulbs. Bing! Anyways, everything is kind of amping up for some humongous action sequences next week. And it's the season finale next week, guys.
Yes.
The end of season 2.
Too bad.
The end of season 2 is here.
It's been a good run.
But while we can, let's talk about this season a little bit more and give you our scoreboard. Almost forgot the name of it. Our scoreboard for episode 7.
You've only done this 6 times.
I've only done this 6 times. Throw it to Drew.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this episode. I thought this is really strong. It's a little I said it earlier in the show, but there's everyone's kind of off doing their things. There's too many stories now. Like people need to come back together. So we're kind of like having more like less things to cut away to. So it felt like we're not giving enough time to anybody, right? Like we're trying to give time to too many people and too many storylines and not enough time to one or two of the main storylines. So that would be my biggest critique of this. I wish there was a little bit more action. I was hoping we would get more action leading into the final episode. Like I kind of wanted to like a little bit of like explosion, something to kind of like cliffhang us a little bit more than what we got. Like, because I hate that now that I feel like this last episode is just going to be nonstop action and not enough exposition, right? Like I feel like we're just going to get a whole action-packed episode of whatever, and there's not a lot of dialogue. And I wish they would just break it up a little bit more. But I'm still going to give this. I'm going to give this an 8. I think this is really strong. Pre-ultimate episode to the season finale. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing Chief kick some ass.
Drew did say that he was only ever going to give an episode an 8 or higher if Cheech had his suit back on. So
that tracks. Okay, I give him the 8.
Approved.
But there was the suits on, but no pew pewing. So it's sort of like
not yet.
Right?
We'll get there.
Yeah.
This was an interesting episode. It's definitely kind of like that slower, lower lore episode, lower lore. But we needed this, and it's like I don't want to degrade the episode because of that, because obviously this is a lot of things that we've been wanting, and like Drew, I was kind of like nerding out over all the deep diving in the science, and obviously knowing the Halo lore is kind of like trying to find all the pins in the board kind of thing to see where they're pulling from. There was a lot of like time jumpy, not quite adding things up, and kind of like Drew mentioned, like stuff getting left on the cutting room floor where things happen a little too quickly or a little too conveniently, so it hurt it. But also, again, like I said, I think they're doing a lot of retconning. They're trying to like get to a point with the limited amount of time they have. Like, it would have been nice if they had maybe 2 more episodes a season, like a 9th and a 10th episode, to kind of stretch things out a little bit. But ultimately, it was a really cool episode. Great character dialogue moments, great lore building. I love the scenes with like Chief with Ackerson and getting his armor back. Obviously, we've been waiting for that for most of the season. And I'm kind of okay with what they're doing with giving Ackerson a little bit of a wiggle in a window and then making Perengowski the big bad in all of this. So I was really enjoying this episode. It's a little mixed in some parts, but ultimately I thought it was a good one. And I'm going 7.5 on this episode.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Like I enjoy when shows do have like the lulls, and they like you get like the cool reveals and everything. Like the flood, we don't know if it's a flood, but I'm like 99% sure it's a flood. I remember watching it, and the entire time they're going over the light bridge, they saw like the door with like, oh, it's got the words for decay on it. I'm like, oh, is it gonna be it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I really liked all of that. Chief getting his armor back, everything with the UNSC and like all the political infighting. Perez was awesome. Yeah, I feel my only real things were like Soren's story does feel a bit like tacked on, but I think they're trying to build stuff up for the eventual season if they get a season 3 and they can like loop that all that stuff in. But yeah, I think again, wish there was like another episode or two after, just so they had that breathing room. But in the end, probably an 8, I'd give it. A lot of it is because I feel vindicated. Mostly that.
Just pandering to Tom.
Pretty much.
Oh man. Well, I also enjoyed this episode. I think it was a cool episode. I do feel, I mean, the criticisms I'd have on the episode is that I felt like there were some moments, like we've discussed already. You guys have mentioned that, you know, there's parts that were kind of skimmed over really quickly. It was kind of like everyone just knows where the Halo is, and everyone does this, and you know, I can understand it when like a show is getting towards the end and it's like they need to start wrapping things up. And I feel like maybe some of the plot points in this, like how everyone finds Halo, maybe could have been dived into more in a previous episode. You know, I feel like they could have squeezed some of this episode's craziness. They could have maybe squeezed into last week's episode. I feel like Soren and Lyra's storyline maybe could have been played out completely last week, and that would have saved you more time to put extra stuff into this week. I mean, this was a shorter episode. It was only like 48 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was a shorter.
So I mean, you essentially you've got 12 extra minutes that, you know, were not utilized. So, you know, as I said earlier about The Last of Us, it was one big criticism I had there is where they had 9 episodes and there was so many freaking episodes where it was so slow and it was like filler and it was like they weren't really doing anything with scenes. And then there were scenes where they would rush through some of the key plot points. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here is it's like they're rushing through the really important stuff without giving us time to breathe and take it all in. Apart from that, though, there were some really, really cool elements to this. I love Perez. I love Perez's story. I think she's really, really a cool character. I'm hoping to see more of her in the future. If we do get a season 3, there's a shitload of stuff set up for a season 3. So surely we're going to get one. We will let you know as soon as we have any confirmation of a season 3. But this, I feel like it was a good episode to kind of hype up the finale. I think that they've really kind of drawn all of their cards. They haven't revealed everything yet, but all the cards are on the table. And I feel like next week everything's just going to be revealed. And that final scene, like I said, it was a little bit montage-ish. It was kind of showing everything hyped up and everything's on tenterhooks. We're ready to go. All said though, the like skimming through and pacing through stuff, I kind of just didn't vibe with me a little bit. So this week I'm giving the episode a 7.5. Still good, still Halo, still awesome. But I'm very, very keen for next week.
I have no idea what to expect for next week's episode. Assuming they land on the Halo, but I'm like, I would prefer that the end of the show is them landing on the Halo. Like I want it to end on that, where they're finally actually there.
I think it could do that. I think the idea that we posed about Chief with the coin, where it's bad, like he chooses to go to the fleet. First. Yeah, I think he has the choice going after the fleets and joining that fight to open up the episode for like action and shit. That could be really cool. And then he has to like chase everyone to get to the Halo. I think that would be really cool as they land on Halo and then not necessarily like boom credits, but like maybe you have a fight scene on Halo. Master Chief versus the Arbiter, final fight scene on the Halo.
Maybe.
Yeah, that would be so cool. Where they need a rematch. They do.
I just feel like
we need to avenge Vanek. Yeah,
I'll say I think that's probably a good chance of happening. It would be cool, but I am waiting for that mid-credit scene of like on Onyx or somewhere, and then you just see a little, or you see one of those little like tentacles with little red things on them, and you're just like
yep.
Yeah, that's
Albert Wesker's in the background, just like putting sunglasses on and walking out.
Sure.
Yes, that will happen as well.
That'll happen totally.
Different show.
Anyways, that's just a different show. This is like T-Virus-ish type stuff. Anyways, that was your episode recap of episode 7 of Halo Season 2. Join us next week for the season finale, peeps. It's the final one. We're going to do some big stuff, some cool stuff. So join us there. It's going to be a lot of fun. But thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you. Thank you for sticking with us. And join us next week. But otherwise, head on over to CouchSoup.com where you can check out a whole bunch of other cool content that we do. You can become a member. Why not? Enlist today. See, I got enlist right. I'm doing words right today. I didn't mess up a single name today.
True, only Drew did.
Don't jinx yourself.
Yes.
Hey, how do you say McKay again?
McKay?
I was going to gaslight you earlier when you said McKay. I was going to be like, don't you mean Mackie?
Freaking Ackerson. See what Ackerson has done to the cast are watching now. Anyways, head on over to CouchSoup, become a member. Check out our YouTube channel for a lot of other cool content. Join us live from... I'm going to just mess up my lines. Join us for the live premiere of Watching Now, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. PST. Correct? And for everything else, keep it locked in here. We love you guys, and we will see you next week, Spartans. Where we will finish this fight. Dadbot Spartans.
Space Amish, Osmosis, Space Nukes.